It's a crisp autumn day in October 2018. Inside a small newsroom in Carlisle, England, the hum of computers fills the air. A journalist named Phil Coleman leans back in his chair, reading over his own story for the News and Star. On the surface, it's an open and shut case, one of those strange local crime stories that grabs headlines for a day or two before vanishing into the archives. The subject of the article is a psychiatrist named Dr. Zholia Alemi, recently sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her crime? Trying to steal a £1.3 million fortune from one of her elderly patients, an 84-year-old widow who had trusted Alemi as her doctor, her confidant, even her friend. The story screamed greed and betrayal, a tale of manipulation wrapped in a white coat. But as Coleman reread his own words, something about the case refused to sit right. It wasn't the crime itself, it was her. Alemi had claimed in court that she was a wealthy aristocrat from Iran, a laughably false story that had fallen apart under the slightest scrutiny. Why would a respected doctor, a psychiatrist no less, spin such an obviously stupid lie? It made no sense. And if she could lie that easily about something so trivial, what else might she be lying about? That thought, that tiny, stubborn itch, wouldn't go away. And as Coleman stared at his computer screen, he had no idea that following this small hunch would pull loose a thread so tangled, it would unravel one of the most shocking scandals in modern British medicine, a deception that had gone undetected for 22 years. The first thread. To understand how it all began, you have to start with the crime that brought everything to light. The year was 2016. In a quiet corner of northern England, the rural county of Cumbria, Dr. Zholia Alemi worked as a consultant psychiatrist. Her specialty was caring for the elderly and vulnerable, patients struggling with dementia, isolation, and mental decline. She was supposed to be a figure of trust, someone families could rely on to look after their loved ones. Among her patients was an 84-year-old widow. The woman was frail, but she had wealth, around £1.3 million in assets. To Alemi, that wasn't a patient. It was an opportunity. She began visiting the woman regularly, taking her out for lunches, presenting herself as a caring friend rather than a clinician. Slowly, methodically, she inserted herself into the old woman's personal affairs. At first, it was harmless, small gestures, helping manage appointments, offering to handle errands. But soon, Alemi had taken control of the woman's bank cards. She used them freely, buying herself a car, expensive clothes, jewelry. In a bizarre twist, she even reported the cards stolen, then used them again afterward to make more purchases. It was bold, absurd, and dripping with arrogance. Her biggest move came next. Alemi decided to rewrite the widow's will, crafting a new version in which she, the trusted doctor, became the main beneficiary. According to this forged will, she would inherit nearly everything: the woman's money, property, and even her £300,000 home. Friends and family who had known the widow for decades were erased with a stroke of Alemi's pen. Fortunately, her plan didn't go unnoticed. A sharp-eyed solicitor spotted irregularities in the will and raised the alarm. The police were called, and by 2018, Alemi was on trial for fraud and theft. Her defense crumbled almost instantly. The evidence was overwhelming, and her outlandish courtroom lies only made things worse. Phil Coleman was there in court, notebook in hand, watching as the so-called psychiatrist's story fell apart. He wrote the headline the next morning: "Greedy psychiatrist jailed for trying to rob her patient." It was a simple line, but as he typed it, something deep down told him there was more here. Something bigger. The way she lied, the calm confidence with which she spun falsehoods. It didn't feel like someone caught in a one-time scheme. It felt practiced. Coleman couldn't shake the feeling. And that's how he began to dig, not knowing he was about to uncover one of the NHS's darkest secrets. Chasing a ghost. Checking a doctor's credentials, you'd think, should be straightforward. After all, the General Medical Council, the GMC, is the body that oversees every licensed doctor in the United Kingdom. Surely, No one could practice medicine for decades without being properly vetted. But when Phil Coleman began retracing Zholia Alemi's professional history, he stumbled upon something strange. She had been officially registered as a medical doctor in the UK since 1995. That was more than 20 years earlier. She had worked across the country, treating thousands of patients, earning trust and respect. Yet the paper trail leading to her qualification was oddly thin. Coleman dug deeper and found that Alemi had entered the UK Medical Register under a special clause of the Medical Act, one designed to make it easier for doctors from Commonwealth countries like New Zealand to practice in the UK. All she had to do was present her credentials from abroad and fill out the proper forms. The shocking part? The GMC didn't verify the documents. They didn't call the university. They didn't ask for transcripts. They didn't check with the New Zealand authorities. If the paperwork looked legitimate, that was enough. The system ran on trust, an honor system in one of the most high-stakes professions on earth. Alemi had claimed she graduated from the University of Auckland with a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery degree in 1992. On that claim alone, she was accepted as a fully qualified doctor in Britain. Coleman realized that if that piece of paper was fake, if it wasn't real, then every job she'd ever held, every diagnosis she'd made, every patient she'd treated was based on a lie. It sounded insane, impossible. Surely someone would have noticed? Surely the GMC checked these things. But as he compared old records, inconsistencies started to appear. Dates didn't align. References were missing. The more he looked, the more it seemed possible that her entire medical career was built on sand. After days of searching through archives, phone calls, and endless late-night coffee, Coleman decided to go straight to the source. Sitting at his desk, he composed a simple email, polite, professional, and world-shaking in its implication. He addressed it to the academic registrar at the University of Auckland. The question was brief. Can you confirm whether Zholia Alemi graduated with a medical degree in 1992? He hit send. Then, he waited. The email. Days passed. Coleman tried to focus on other stories, but his mind kept drifting back to that message. That one question now floating 11,000 miles away in someone's inbox. Every time a new email arrived, his heart jumped. And then, finally, it came. The response was short, professional, and utterly devastating. The University of Auckland confirmed that yes, Zholia Alemi had once been enrolled as a student, but she had failed her degree. She had never qualified as a doctor. In that moment, Phil Coleman's hunch transformed into a bombshell. Zholia Alemi had never been a doctor. Not in New Zealand, not in the UK, not anywhere. For more than 2 decades, she had built a career entirely on forged documents. Every patient she had ever seen, every prescription she had written, every life she had influenced, all of it had been under false pretenses. The implications were staggering. She had detained vulnerable people under the Mental Health Act, something that only authorized psychiatrists could legally do. She had sat in hospitals, making clinical decisions that affected countless lives. And through it all, no one, not a single colleague, manager, or regulator, had ever discovered the truth. Coleman later described that moment as jaw-dropping. Imagine sitting alone at your desk, realizing you're holding evidence that could shatter the credibility of an entire national health system. For a few minutes, he was the only person in the world who knew. He had just exposed one of the most shocking frauds in medical history. The clock was now ticking. The system fails. When Coleman's investigation was published, it detonated like a grenade. Headlines spread from Carlisle to London to Wellington. The General Medical Council scrambled to contain the fallout. Within hours, Alemi's license was revoked, and an internal investigation was launched. But the bigger question, the one everyone was asking, was how? How could this possibly have happened? How could a woman with no medical qualification practice for 22 years inside one of the world's most advanced healthcare systems? The answer was ugly. The GMC admitted that the rules in place back in 1995 were deeply flawed. They hadn't verified foreign medical qualifications properly. Their system relied on trust and assumed honesty, assumptions that Zholia Alemi had exploited completely. In a press release, the GMC apologized, calling the oversight inadequate. It was a stunning understatement. The NHS, too, faced uncomfortable scrutiny. Over the course of 2 decades, Alemi had worked across the country, in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and multiple regions of England. She'd been hired and rehired, transferred and promoted. Colleagues described her as difficult, sometimes erratic, but no one had ever questioned her qualifications. It painted a bleak picture, a massive, bureaucratic system so overloaded and undersupervised that a total imposter could slip through the cracks and stay hidden for decades. Hospitals scrambled to review her past work. Thousands of patients were potentially affected. Some may have received incorrect diagnoses or unnecessary medication. Others might have been detained under false authority. But how do you measure that kind of damage? You can't. The harm she caused is unquantifiable, an invisible scar running through the lives of people who trusted her. The BBC called it a catastrophic failure of oversight. ITV described it as a scandal that should never have been possible. The Daily Mail called her a fraud who made a mockery of the medical system. Zholia Alemi had become the face of institutional failure, a reminder that even the most trusted systems are only as strong as their weakest checks. The final reckoning. Alemi served her original 5-year sentence for defrauding the widow, but her real reckoning came later. In February 2023, she stood once again in a courtroom, this time in Manchester, facing a new trial that focused on the foundation of her entire career, the forged documents. Prosecutors laid everything bare. They presented her fake degree certificate from 1995, a poorly constructed forgery riddled with spelling mistakes and inconsistencies. They showed a fabricated letter of recommendation she had written herself. 13 counts of fraud, forgery, and deception. Her defense, as before, was absurd. She claimed the documents were genuine and that the case was part of a conspiracy against her. The jury didn't buy it. After less than 6 hours of deliberation, they returned a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. The judge didn't hold back. In his remarks, he called her actions wicked and evil, saying she had deliberately exploited the most vulnerable for personal gain. He sentenced her to 7 years in prison. But even as she was led away in handcuffs, the shadow of her deception lingered. Because this was never just about one woman. It was about what her story revealed: how fragile institutional trust can be, and how systems designed to protect people can become blind to the very dangers they're meant to guard against. So the next time we assume the system always works, or that the people in charge always know what they're doing, remember this story. Remember how a fake doctor treated real patients for decades. Remember that vigilance, both personal and institutional, is the only real safeguard against deception. Because in the end, the biggest scandals don't always explode into view. Sometimes they start as a whisper, a single loose thread that someone, somewhere decides to pull. If you found this story shocking, please share it so others can protect themselves. Let me know in the comments if there are other cases you'd like us to cover, or if you've witnessed something similar in your own experience with healthcare or professional misconduct. Thanks for watching Sloppy Medicine. Stay informed, stay safe.